Claire Parkinson is the costume designer on The Politician. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I wanted to ask you, Claire, what was the most what costume was most important one for you to get right in season 2 of The Politician?
Wow. Right off the bat, just spur of the moment thought, it would be the scene in episode 1, the kind of cat and mouse chase between Astrid and Hadassah, running around New York City, chasing one another. I just wanted and all of us wanted their looks just to be, bring in comic appeal, have them really, kind of bright. I use a lot of metallics, sunglasses, accessories, both bold, strong, brash women, with a big sense of style, big personality. That was one of those moments for me. And we put Astrid in a Marc Jacobs faux fur, and we had Hadassah, Bette Midler, in this amazing metallic Burberry vintage trench that I had dug around at vintage stores for. Yeah, that was really a fun moment for us to capture.
Yeah. Now, how do the costumes, do you think, and your work help sort of influence the characters or reflect who the characters are?
I mean, this Ryan Murphy created such a heightened aspirational world for sure, but there is grounded in reality, like parts of each character. And something that was really wonderful is collaborating with the actors to help them find out who these people are and how they dress the way they are, and whether that be inspired by icons from the 70s for McAfee or very presidential for Peyton. So although he is running for president, we still wanted to bring in some very fashionable, colorful, less political moments. And in the fitting, that really comes to life. An actor, the best part of my job is an actor leaves a fitting and they're like, oh, thank you. I really figured out who this character was, and you really helped us tell the story. And it's such a collaboration with the showrunners, the actors, and that happened a lot on this show because each character's style is so unique to them. It's almost uniform, but it's also very timeless. We were inspired by every time period in the 20th century for this show, from Peyton's mock neck 60s turtlenecks to the 70s caftans for Georgina. It's very much heightened reality. And I think that was kind of our goal for most of the characters, not necessarily what you would assume most people would be wearing every day.
Yeah. Peyton, he's so loves his presidential trivia and knowing what every president did, what college most of them went to, all that sort of stuff. Were you influenced, even though it's such a heightened sense of sort of realities, you say that the costumes, were you influenced by any presidential wardrobes in his outfits?
For sure. I always look at JFK and for Alice, First Lady, Jackie Onassis, Kennedy. I looked at a lot of the 50s and 60s presidents. And then I also look at Obama because he has great style, very slim suiting, some color. There were definitely shapes that were very 60s and very Obama. And I would say those were the two that I looked at the most. But we also looked at films a lot for him, like Robert Redford in The Candidate, a lot of street style and high fashion as well.
Cool. Season 1 of the show is sort of set high school presidential sort of politics, and then season 2 we shift to sort of the real world adult sort of politics sort of thing. Did you need to make a shift in the sort of costumes you were picking because of the sort of that change in worlds that we were looking at and the sort of expansion of sort of the politics?
Yeah, definitely. At the same time, coming from California to New York for season 2, I was also very concerned about losing color and making it too dark, and how do we keep this California sunshine alive in New York. But for Peyton and for Alice, and almost all the characters matured a lot this season. They were still very chic. They still had the similar aesthetics. We were very much trying to bring in a more political Americana colors like the red and the blue and the creams. And that's very true for Peyton and as well as Alice, the first lady of his campaign. So last season in high school, she was very sherbet, like ice cream princess and pale pinks and yellows. And we still did that, but we've added the very political colors. And then for Dee Dee, Judith Light's character, she's so fashionable for a politician. We looked at Nancy Pelosi for her and Michelle Obama. We wanted her to be this like strong force female political figure. And Peyton had to align with her because he was running against her. So I also brought in a lot of autumnal colors, which he didn't wear in season 1. So rusts and burgundies and olives, and he definitely wore more ties this season. Maybe they're Gucci, or they're vintage. A lot of Prada kind of platform brogues. He's not your typical politician in any way. And same with his mother, Georgina, who was running for president. Like most presidential candidates aren't wearing like caftans and blue Oscar de la Renta jumpsuits. Like this is very much like a very fun kind of comedic political vibe.
Yeah. What was the most fun costume for you to work on?
Ooh. There was a scene where Hadassah and Astrid are meeting in a restaurant. And when I first met with Bette Midler, we went to her house and we talked about the character. And, she has such a strong sense of style herself. And we decided we wanted to design a lot of her looks. So we sourced fabrics and we sketched shapes for her. We made a beautiful eggplant purple organza sheer trench coat, a matching hat, some turquoise jewelry, and then a matching skirt. And that was really a great moment for us. And then she was sitting across from Astrid, and Astrid is wearing this huge, extreme puffy sleeve. And they're just like looking at each other, two strong women and strong silhouettes. And that was kind of an amazing opportunity. And we did that a lot for Bette, just designing clothing for her specific character and for her, because she's such an icon herself, Bette Midler.
Yeah, no. And last year you received your first Emmy nomination for season 1 of The Politician. What did that mean to you to get that recognition?
It was amazing. I actually was so surprised. One of the best parts about it is that my sister was my assistant costume designer. So not only was I getting to enjoy this, my younger sister was my assistant. She was my collaborator on both seasons in LA and New York, and we got to share that moment together. Of course, it was kind of bizarre because we were in the pandemic and we couldn't go to the Emmys, so we were doing like recording things here. But I think for me, I've worked so hard. I've worked for many people over the years, and I really respect all the women that I was up against. And it just was a dream come true. I can't believe it, really. And it'd be amazing to have this opportunity again. But really, it was just such an honor to be nominated.
Yeah, and like I from what I understand, because of last year and the Creative Arts Emmy Awards, you would have had to send in an acceptance speech, right? Because they did it sort of like that all lined up. Did you do that with your sister? You did the acceptance speech?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lou Eyrich, who is Ryan Murphy's creative producer, and she was the person who gave me this opportunity. That was amazing too. Lou Eyrich is just also like a amazing, strong costume designer who now is like overseeing all Ryan Murphy television costumes. And we got to do the speech together, and my sister was by my side in person.
Yeah. Now, like a lot of Emmy nominees or award nominees, just to be safe, sometimes write down a few things that they'll say if they get nominated. Was it a sort of weird experience, though, like actually delivering the speech and sending it in?
For sure.
Yeah.
There's nothing like it. And I had my partner like recording us, and I dressed up, in a beautiful coral dress. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that just lives somewhere in the world, but it never was used.
Yeah.
But it was great too, because I had to really come up and think about all the people I want to thank, like my whole team who brought this to life. The show, even from the background to all the guest casts, every single one is super stylized. We had scenes with 400 background. We dressed a lot of them head to toe. We were not putting high schoolers in denim. We were making everything pumped up, very bright, saturated, timeless. That was our goal. And my team really helped bring that to life as well.
What, what's your favorite scene in the series?
Oh, scene. Oh, that's really tough. There's a great scene in episode 6, and it's Peyton and his team, McAfee, James, his first lady, Alice, and Ronnie, who plays Sky, and Bette Midler and Judith Light's characters, Dee Dee and Hadassah. And it is this moment where they're both like their two teams are doing a walk, and they're wearing sunglasses and they lift them up. It's just this great standoff moment for both the teams. And it was also just one of my favorite wardrobe moments as well, because everyone's looks were so significant and so different. And it was just a great, strong moment to highlight. And I think, that was episode 6. And it was in Dee Dee Standish's office, and Peyton, his whole team, just comes on, and there was a tie, and they're trying to figure it out who's going to win.
Just thinking about the costumes, like it's like they're so, for most of the characters, very sort of as you said, like heightened and iconic and things like that. What, like, does that mean like they can only sort of get so many uses out of each? You need to constantly be changing what they're wearing because they are so sort of memorable and they stand out so much. Like,
definitely, this is not really a show where anyone repeats much. Maybe
yeah.
shoes. Maybe Alice, actually, because she is the kind of Jackie Kennedy type. She always has a very small handbag. She never repeats a full outfit. It might be a blouse, and Peyton as well. He might repeat a suit, but he's going to wear, maybe next time he wears a shirt with a tie, but the last time he wore it 4 episodes previous, he was wearing some kind of really cool sweater vest underneath. But this was definitely not, I don't think I repeated anything. Definitely not for Georgina or Dee Dee or Hadassah, just a piece here and there. But I do something which I really love, is that one of the things about creating a show that is very timeless means that I get to recycle clothing. So I search at a lot of vintage stores and a lot of high-end designer consignment for this show. So it's not all new clothing. This is very much clothing throughout many different time periods. Hadassah, Bette Midler, I found Dior suits from probably the 80s and 90s. And that means that this clothing isn't all just found in a mall or a store. It's dug around at vintage stores and costume houses. Online, I did a lot of digging on Etsy and eBay and all these places to find special things so that it feels really unique and timeless.
Peyton is a sort of very meticulous planner. He sort of thinks everything like 5 moves ahead, and he's very what if you're going to do a negative spin on it, very controlling and sort of needs to control everything. How meticulous do you need to be as the costume designer on this show? How many moves ahead do you need to think?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I try to be as ahead as I can, depending on if I have a script. A lot of this kind of planning that we do, the lucky thing about a season 2 is that I knew the characters. I knew they were moving to New York. I fit almost all the actors before I had scripts for season 2. Nice. And I just waited to figure out where to put them all in. I try to fit people for at least a few episodes, but a lot of the characters have about 10 wardrobe looks an episode at least. So
Wow.
you can usually I try to fit everyone for, I would say, at least like 2 to 3 episodes as I can. And then if something in the script comes up that's really special, I'll fit them for that as well.
Ah, that's nice.
Yeah.
What was the most, was it anything that when a script came in, it sort of threw you a bit, or like you had to sort of adapt quite quickly?
Oh yeah. There was a scene, I think, in episode 6 where all of a sudden they're living on a compound. It's like a kind of religious cult like scene for Astrid and Alice. They run away and they leave New York and they're like milking cows and living in with all these other women in a commune type environment. So they're wearing white dresses, and it almost kind of had this I don't know, I was trying to think of the film that came out a few years ago, but it was, it's blanking me, but it was just like so different from what the character normally would do. So you have to like think quickly about, all right, how are we going to create this very different world for these characters? And usually that just, and also background, we had all these women that came in who were supposed to dress identical to them. So that was really fun for us to, kind of pivot the characters quickly.
Hmm. And sort of finally, Claire, as someone who's worked on this show for 2 seasons, what do you think The Politician is sort of about?
I think it's really that's really tough. It's kind of a commentary on the political world, but in um, a very satirical way. There is a Wes Anderson vibe to it. Um, but I think that's something really important is a lot of the things that Peyton cares about and his campaign are things that a lot of the younger generation does care about, whether that be environmental impact or, just trying to make decisions for a better world. I think, yes, there's a comedic edge, but there is like a good, important message that is trying to be, come across on the stage, on the
Hmm.
camera.
Yeah, and you just mentioned Wes Anderson vibe. I just sort of just quickly check with you. Was there anyone that like before you got this work on the show, like as you were growing up or whatever, that influenced you and made you want to sort of get into costume design for film and television?
Um, so I grew up mostly in New York, but my mother was a stylist before I was born. And then she collected vintage my whole life. I grew up kind of in this world where art and fashion was really important, and collecting fashion magazines like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar from a young age, and also visiting museums and galleries and visiting the Metropolitan Museum of Art for all the fashion exhibits. So that has a lot to do with my mother, honestly, because she is such um, a strong, fashionable woman who's really curious. And I also think, you know, I had worked for a lot of different people, but I think that throughout my career, I've just kind of been inspired by everyone I've worked with, and gotten to learn just by diving in. The first costume designer I worked for, Melissa Bruning, I had no idea what the costume world was like. And we were doing a 1950s through 70s film with like Christopher Walken and Val Kilmer. And I just dove in, and it's been nonstop since. It's kind of just gone by so quickly that I'm like, how did that happen? The last 15 years. But it's been a wild ride, and I love it so much. I'm prepping a show, and I do my first fitting next week with an actress, Amanda Seyfried, actually Seyfried, I think they said at the Academy Awards, and that's how you say it. And I'm just so excited for every project I do, and yeah, it's just the best.
Oh, look, inspired by your mother and now working with your sister. How lovely.
Yeah.
Claire, thank you so much for talking with us today. People watching this interview can go to goldderby.com to make your awards predictions, join our discussions, and watch other interviews with award contenders. And Claire, all the best of luck for this year's Emmy Awards.
Thank you, Matt.